decisions you make now, it can harm you later on. So make sure you're making wise decisions now. I want to talk about how life is precious and we need to be smart about how we maneuver through life, because I think over the last week, I don't know how I got caught in this. Sometimes I get in these big deep dives, and I'll be checking out all kind of stuff on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, any place. And there were like two court cases involving very young men had to do with unaliving. So one was a case in Jacksonville where, and it seemed like there may be some rappers a part of this, where like a guy named Queso unalived another guy that was part of another gang. So Queso was part of a gang, and maybe there was like another guy named Scotty that was part of this gang, and they unalived this other person. And so the court case happened this week or last week, and it kind of made headlines because one, these guys who unalived this other person, they've unalived some other people. They got a lot of other court cases. It also is connected to a gang where there is like a big rapper that's part of it. His name's Young and Ace. So it was very interesting, this whole entire trial, because they walked through how the crime was committed, you know, and a couple of people turned state's evidence on a lot of the, a couple of people turned state's evidence on Queso, the guy who was a shooter. And it really showed me, and one of the persons that turned on him was his own father, who supposedly is a gangster himself. So Queso's father is a gangster, but yet Queso's father pretty much ratted on Queso, and now Queso's looking at life imprisonment, and there's another guy who's looking at life. And I just thought it was really sad to see that there are these young men who are literally doing crimes at a young age that will put them in jail for 30, 40 years. 30, 40 years because they want to do gunplay out here in the streets. I thought it was very interesting that his father turned on him, even though his father had cases against him. And I'm always wondering, like, when we're young, are we thinking about the decisions we make and how they influence our lives in the future? Think about it. The decisions they've made right now is literally dictating the next 30 years of their life. And I just find it so distressing. And I think about when I was a young 20-year-old guy, and I never did nothing like that. But I probably did some choices that may now, looking at my life now, it may have either either negatively or positively influenced my life 20 years later, 25 years later. And that's very scary to think about. And then I was also looking at another court case. I can't remember where this court case is, but it was a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old and maybe a 16-year-old who unalived three other teenagers over trying to rob them. And I was thinking to myself, one of those guys who was 17, he got like 60 years jail. 60 years. One of them, he was 12 at the time that he helped commit the crime. He got, like, he did a plea deal. He got 40 years. I'm talking about some of these trials that has been happening with these very young men, and they've gotten these life sentences, and they're doing crimes that is significantly altering their life. Like, if you're 12 years old and you get a 40-year sentence, you know how crazy that is? So I'm just looking at it, and so it reminded me of like a Bible passage. If y'all don't know, like, way in word, like I talk about biblical things. And there's plenty of stories of people in the Bible doing things earlier in their life that literally affects their life later. And one person is Moses. If anybody knows who Moses is, let me know if you know who Moses is. Moses, he took these people from Egypt in slavery and took them all the way to Canaan, which was like a place where they can live and grow. But guess what? He took them to the land of milk and honey, but he was never able to live there. He was never able to go there. He was never able to live there because he did something early that banned him from ever going to the place that he was leading them to. So bottom line here is, at one point, God told Moses to speak to a rock to get water out of it, and instead he struck it with a rod. I know it sounds kind of like who cares, but the bottom line is he was disobedient towards God, and God has given him all the power to do all the things, and he was disobedient towards God. So for his consequence, he did not get to see the land of milk and honey. So here's the thing: we can change our whole lives around. Like, you can do something bad when you're young, change your whole life around, but yet you still got to endure the consequences. There are people who were probably risque sensually, when they were younger, turned their whole life around, but still may have something from all the risque play that they still deal with to this day. Turning your life around doesn't make it free from consequences. And so when I was listening to one of these teenagers talk about how they're so sorry for the crimes they did, because you got to realize the way the court system is real slow. So when they did the crime like 3 years ago, and now they're in court getting sentenced. And over 3 years, they become remorseful. Well, guess what? Your remorse doesn't get you no lighter sentence. This guy was remorseful. He said he was sorry to the families, but yet you still got 30 years in jail. Because at the end of the day, the things you do when you're younger can sometimes have consequences when you're older. Am I talking to somebody? Y'all get me? Y'all get me, chat? Y'all understand what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it makes me like, because I got sons, and it makes me want to like really instill in them, look, decisions you make now, it can harm you later on. So make sure you're making wise decisions now. Like, don't be like Moses and make a bad decision, then you can't see the land. You can't see the land of milk and honey. Don't be like other people and make bad decisions when you're young that affect you when you're older. There are some people that are making financially damaging decisions because they're in their 20s and they're like, YOLO, I'm in my 20s. I can do whatever I want. And they're making financially damaging decisions now that then their credit will be bad. And by the time they're 35, 36, 37, they want to buy a house and you got bad credit because of decisions you made earlier in your life. And, just kind of thinking about this, it really has me thinking that it is good to have wise counsel around you. Like, I remember growing up, my mom really tried to put wise men around me. Try to put very educated, older gentlemen. But, when you're young, you're like, I don't want to hear from these older people. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to, like, you an old head. Like, I don't want to hear what you know about what I go through. That's how we are when we're young. But I think like there's a whole different disposition that we need where we got to listen to older people. Don't listen to them too much. Some people don't never get better as they get older. Some people just continue to be young and dumb and make still stupid mistakes, and they're almost approaching 40 years old. But there are people out here that are like, look, I went through that, so I'm going to tell you what you need to be doing so you don't go through it. Like Jay-Z said, Jay went through that, so hopefully you won't have to go through that. And I do believe like, okay, for instance, there's a guy who came to replace my dryer in the bathroom. What is it? That thing that intakes the moisture out of the bathroom. Whatever that thing is. It's like a vent. a guy came to replace that, and he works for a plumbing company. Well, he's like 22, and he's super young. And I was like, man, how'd you get into this? Like being so young. He's like, you know, I realized that there wasn't a lot of people getting trades. Everybody was going to college, but no one was getting trades. He said, so what I thought about was I'm going to go ahead and get a trade. And so when he went to the trade school, like the plumbing company and the HVAC companies, they grabbed him up because there's not a lot of young dudes getting in it. And now he makes six figures at 22 because he made this choice at 18, got everything he needed. Now he's at 22 making six figures. Can you wrap your mind around making six figures at 22 and not throwing a football or shooting a basketball? Can you wrap your mind around that? I can't. And he seemed like he got his head on straight, really. He really does. I couldn't wrap my mind around that. But I don't know. I'm just thinking that ultimately, we need to be smarter with making choices at a younger age. And as we make choices at a younger age that benefits us in our older age, that's worth it. That's worth it. And it's just something I wanted to get off my chest, just because, like, looking at these young men getting these life sentences, like a kid at 12. So an action that he made before he became a teenager is going to get him 40 years. All right, that's all I got. Wasn't going to be long. It's going to be strong. I hope y'all have a good day. Thank you all. Way and word. I'm out.